Damn them all. Every fake smile, every thank you they never meant. I was never their daughter, just their lifeline with a paycheck. My name is Ariana Bennett. I'm 32, financially successful, emotionally bankrupt. What started as loyalty turned into a lifetime sentence. But what they didn't know is, when I read that will, I didn't just walk away. I made sure they'd regret it. I'm Ariana Bennett, 32, financial manager for a mid-sized investment firm in Portland. I live alone in a small but tidy apartment near Forest Park, a space that mirrors me perfectly. Clean, organized, no frills. People always say I'm meticulous, straightforward, reliable, and I suppose I am, especially when it comes to family. That's the word that defines most of my adult life, family. Since I graduated college, I've been their backbone, their safety net. They're everything. My parents still live in the old 2-story house in Salem where I grew up. It's a humble place with creaky floorboards and a garden that always smells faintly of tomatoes and cut grass. They never made much money. Dad worked part-time at a hardware store until his knees gave out, and Mom taught piano lessons to neighborhood kids. But I made sure they never went without. When Mom needed back surgery, I didn't hesitate. I paid the full bill. No insurance, just cash. When the pipes under the kitchen floor burst and the foundation began to rot, I wired over $8,000 to fix it. Every month without fail, I sent $1,200 to help with the mortgage, bills, groceries, whatever they needed. I never made a big deal about it, I just did it. Isn't that what children are supposed to do? Step up when their parents can't? At first, it felt good, even righteous. A sense of pride came with every wire transfer, every emergency I helped avert. But over time, the pride began to blur into fatigue, then into something heavier. I started noticing things I didn't want to see. Brandon, my younger brother, is 4 years younger than me. No degree, no steady job, no plans, really. While I was working 10-hour days in heels and tight deadlines, he was lounging on the couch, watching reruns, or scrolling Instagram. Brandon's wallet got stolen again, Mom would say over the phone, almost whispering it. "Can you send a bit more this month, honey?" And I would, like a machine. Not once, not twice, but year after year, his wallet always seemed to vanish around the same time, just before rent or a bill. I wanted to laugh, or cry. I wasn't sure which. When he turned 25, he opened a vintage clothing store. I gave him $10,000, my bonus from work, and even helped write his business plan. A year later, the shop was closed. "Guess I'm not cut out to be a business owner," he said with a shrug and a grin, then moved back home like it was nothing. I never heard a single complaint from Mom or Dad. Not one. "He's trying," Mom would say gently, stirring something on the stove. "He just needs more time." He was 28 now, and I was just tired. Tired of being the dependable one, the invisible one. The one they called only when something broke, something failed, or someone needed saving. I'd sit in my quiet apartment some nights, leftover takeout, wine half finished on the counter, and stare at the auto-transfer reminders on my phone. My throat would tighten. Not from the money, not really. It was the birthdays spent alone. The times I canceled weekend trips to patch their roof. The way Mom's voice always softened when she spoke to Brandon, never with me. I told myself it didn't mean anything, but it did. It meant everything. Transition to part 2, inciting incident, the beginning of the fracture. So when Mom called one Friday afternoon, voice warm and sweet, saying, "Can you come down this weekend? We need help reviewing some paperwork, just mortgage stuff. We don't understand it." I said yes, of course I did. I even smiled after hanging up. I was happy they still needed me, still chose me. But why did something in my chest feel tight? Why did I ask myself, is this another crisis? Or something they haven't told me yet? I brushed the thought away. Maybe it was just the weather. Or maybe, just maybe. I was starting to listen to a voice I had ignored for too long. I drove to Salem the next morning. The sky was overcast, the kind of gray that made everything look flat and tired. The freeway was quiet, and I kept the radio off. I wanted silence. Or maybe I just didn't want noise that would distract me from the subtle unease humming beneath my skin. It should have been a simple visit. I told myself that. I even stopped at the local bakery before getting to the house, picked up Mom's favorite lemon scones and a coffee cake for Dad. Small offerings. I still believed in those gestures, even if I no longer knew what they were worth. When I pulled into the driveway, Dad was outside fixing a porch light. He looked up, waved with the same absent smile I'd known since childhood. "Hey, kiddo, you didn't have to drive all the way out here for some paperwork." I smiled tightly. "It's no trouble." Inside, the house smelled like rosemary and soap. Mom was in the kitchen, her back slightly hunched, drying her hands with a dish towel. She turned around and gave me that smile, the one she used when trying to look calm. "There's iced tea on the table, honey." I marked the papers with a blue sticker. "Just some mortgage stuff we can't make sense of." I nodded, set the pastry bag down, and walked to the living room. The folder was thick, neatly organized, clipped corners, labeled tabs. She always was tidy with paperwork, except when it came to actual decisions. I sat down, pulled out my laptop, and started flipping through the stack. Most of it was familiar: utility bills, annual tax returns, a few old medical insurance forms. Then I saw it. A thinner set of documents marked with a blue post-it. The handwriting on the tab was perfectly neat. "Last Will and Testament, Stephen and Marlene Bennett." I paused. A will? Something clenched in my stomach. I reached for it slowly, like touching something hot. A part of me wanting to read it, another part already knowing I shouldn't. But I opened it anyway. The first page was straightforward: names, dates, witness signatures. The second page is what hit me. I blinked once, twice, then read the sentence again just to be sure. "We leave all assets, including the house in Salem, all savings, life insurance, and land inheritance to our son, Brandon Bennett." My name wasn't there. Not once. Not even a mention of gratitude, not even a token acknowledgement, except a line near the end. Neat. Clinical. "We love both our children equally, but believe this decision is necessary for family stability." I read that line so many times it stopped feeling like language. Love equally. Is that what it was? Equal love meant I paid their bills for 10 years while he got the deed? Equal love meant I gave up vacations and birthdays and sleep, and he got rewarded for doing nothing? I didn't realize how long I'd been sitting there until Mom's voice called softly from the kitchen. "Ariana, did you find the mortgage forms?" I stood up slowly, papers in hand, and walked into the kitchen. She was rinsing green beans in the sink, the water running cold and fast over her fingers. I held the will in front of her. "When did you write this?" She looked up. There was a flicker, panic in her eyes, but then she masked it as always. "Oh, that. It's been a while. Your father and I just wanted to make sure everything was settled." Settled. I let the word hang in the air like a fog. "Did you think I wouldn't read it?" She dried her hands gently, deliberately. Her voice softened. "Ariana, you have your career, your own place. Brandon, he's still struggling. We just want to help him get on his feet." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because something in me broke so suddenly. I didn't know what else to do. "Get on his feet? You're handing him the entire house to lie down on." She opened her mouth, but I raised my hand. I didn't want to hear it. Not yet. Not while I was still holding a legal document that erased me like I never mattered. And in that moment I realized something that made my breath catch. They never expected me to ask. Never expected me to question. Because I never had, until now. I stood in that kitchen longer than I should have, the will still in my hands, now slightly bent from the pressure of my grip. I wasn't sure what burned more, the insult of omission or the calmness on my mother's face. She reached to touch my arm, but I stepped back. "You didn't think I'd read it, did you?" She blinked, wounded. "Ariana, it's not that we didn't mean to include you, it's just..." "Just what?" I cut her off, my voice sharper than I meant. "That you thought I wouldn't care? That I'd keep paying for everything, smiling like a fool, while Brandon gets rewarded for doing nothing?" Her lips parted, but no sound came out. For a second she looked older, smaller. I turned and walked to the front door. Dad was still outside, fiddling with the light. He looked up when I stepped onto the porch. "Leaving already?" he asked. "Stay for dinner, we're making stew." I held up the papers. "Did you sign this?" He glanced at the will and froze. A flicker of guilt crossed his face. Yeah, but there was no need to explain, Ariana. It's not what you think." "No?" I said, my voice lower now. "Because I read it, and it's crystal clear." His smile faltered. I stood there for a beat too long. Then I walked to my car, opened the door, and turned back once more. "I came here to help with paperwork," I said quietly. "Now I see exactly where I stand." "Don't misunderstand," he called after me. But I shook my head slowly. I'm not misunderstanding. For once, I actually understand everything. I drove back to Portland that evening in silence. The rain began halfway through the drive, tapping lightly on the windshield like small, apologetic fingers. I didn't turn the wipers on right away. I was too busy replaying every moment of the last 10 years, all the holidays I spent alone. All the late nights I skipped dinner to finish reports, just to send the extra bonus home. All the times I said yes when what I needed most was a no, and all the times no one, not once, ever said, "You've done enough, Art." At home I sat in the dark with my phone in my hand, staring at the transfer reminders. My thumb hovered over the screen. Should I stop? Would they even notice if I didn't say anything? The thought felt dangerous, but also freeing. I canceled the auto payments that night. Every single one. Then I opened my spreadsheet, the one I used for monthly budgeting, and started a new tab. I titled it, "What I've Given." Line by line, I listed every dollar I'd sent over the past 7 years. Hospital bills, roof repairs, Brandon's business loan, the monthly checks. Not because I wanted them back, just because I needed to see it. Needed to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy, that I had in fact done enough. The next morning, I didn't feel lighter. I felt hollow, like I had dropped a weight but couldn't remember how to stand without it. That afternoon, my phone buzzed. "Hey, the property tax is coming due next week. Can you front it like usual?" No greeting, no check-in, just the ask, like always. I stared at the screen, then typed back, "I think Brandon can handle it. The house belongs to him now." 5 minutes later, Mom called. I didn't pick up. She called again, then sent a text. "Ariana, don't do this. You know we don't have enough. Brandon's still looking for a job. Don't let a small misunderstanding tear the family apart." A small misunderstanding? I bit my lip, trying not to shake. Then I replied, "This isn't a misunderstanding. You made a decision. I'm just respecting it. If Brandon deserves everything, then he can take responsibility too." 3 days of silence. Not the kind of silence that made me feel guilty. The kind that let me breathe. I hadn't spoken to either of my parents since the text exchange. And to my surprise, they hadn't called again. It was the quietest my phone had been in years. But silence, like debt, always comes due. That Saturday morning my doorbell rang. It was too early for deliveries, too urgent to be a neighbor. Then came the knock, not polite, not hesitant, insistent. I froze. My heart climbed up into my throat. I crept to the peephole, half hoping I was wrong. But I wasn't. There they were, Mom, Dad, and Brandon. Brandon with his hands stuffed in his hoodie pockets, eyes darting away like this was beneath him. Dad stood stiff, his jaw clenched, and Mom, front and center, eyes already glossy, like she had rehearsed this whole scene on the drive over. I didn't open the door. Not right away. "Ariana," Mom called through the gap. Her voice was thick with emotion, but still calculated. "I know you're in there. I don't want to make a scene, but you're pushing this family to the edge." That word again. Family. I stepped back, breathing steady. "You wanted a scene? You drove 3 hours to knock on the door of the daughter you erased?" I opened the door. Not wide, just enough for them to see my face, to know I wasn't hiding. "This isn't the time or the place," I said evenly. "Please leave." "You're really going to ignore your parents?" Dad said, his voice gruff. "After everything we've done for you?" I stared at him, then slowly raised my voice just enough. "You chose Brandon, now I'm choosing myself." Mom's expression collapsed in real time. Her voice climbed an octave. "Don't be so selfish. Family is about carrying the load together. You were always the thoughtful one." I opened the door fully, stepping into the frame. Arms folded, spine straight. That's right. I was the thoughtful one. The one who paid every bill, fixed every leak, picked up every failure, even when no one said thank you. She tried to interrupt, but I held up my hand. "And you repaid it by cutting me out of the will like I never existed. Brandon got the house, the savings, everything. I didn't even get a mention." "You're stable, Ariana," Dad said, stepping forward. "You didn't need—" "Then don't ask me for help again," I cut in. "If you truly believe Brandon deserves it all, then let him start acting like he earned it." Brandon scoffed. "I never asked you to do anything. They made those decisions. You chose to play martyr." I turned to him slowly. "No, you just stood back and watched while I carried everything, knowing you'd get the reward either way. You didn't ask because you knew someone else would clean up your mess." Dad's voice broke in. "You're acting like a stranger." Because that's how you treated me, I snapped. You didn't just write me out of a document. You wrote me out of this family. Mom's lip trembled. You're my daughter. I don't want to lose you over money. I looked at her, eyes steady, voice low. You didn't lose me over money. You lost me when you trusted everything to the one who gave nothing, and erased the one who gave everything. The silence after that was different. It wasn't angry. It was final. I stepped back inside and held the door. If any of you still think I'm going to change my mind, you can leave now. They didn't move. So I did. I closed the door. No slam, no dramatic ending, just quiet, the kind that echoed with truth. I leaned against the wood, my hands trembling, not from fear, but from relief. Relief that I had finally said it. All of it. No longer the silent shadow behind the family, no longer the daughter bought with obligation, just me, standing, alone, and whole. I thought that closing the door would be the end of it. Naive, I know. 3 days passed, no calls, no knocks, just the quiet hum of my own space, finally mine, free of demands, guilt, or masked expectations. Then one morning, while sipping coffee at my kitchen table, my phone buzzed. It was Madison, my best friend from college, now a lawyer in Seattle. Are you okay? I just saw something your mom posted. My stomach dropped. I opened my Facebook account, the one I rarely used except to keep track of old classmates and birthdays. It had been months since I even logged in. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. My mother's post was there, shared over 40 times already. It's heartbreaking as parents to watch your child turn their back on you over money. We gave her everything, our love, our time, our sacrifices. And now, when we're old and in need, she abandons us. Our home may be lost, but our pain is deeper than any foreclosure. Underneath were hundreds of comments, so heartbreaking. Kids these days have no respect. I'd never forgive a child who did that to me. She'll regret it when it's too late. I scrolled numb. Then came Brandon's share. Family is about love, not calculations. I've never been perfect, but I've never turned my back when they needed me. And then Dad. Not one to post often, but when he did, it cut like a knife. Some people think success means forgetting where they came from. It's only when we grow old and weak that we see which children truly stand by us. And there, tagged directly, my name, my photo. They'd made me the villain. The greedy, ungrateful daughter who left her parents in the cold. None of them mentioned the money I'd sent every month for nearly a decade. None of them spoke of the back surgery I paid in full, the roof I fixed, the failed store I funded. None of them remembered the nights I sat alone on my birthday while Brandon had BBQs in the backyard. They didn't just turn me into a stranger, they turned me into a headline. And for a brief, searing moment, I wanted to disappear. But then, a colder, quieter instinct rose inside me. If they were going to tell only half the story, then I was going to tell the part they erased. I opened my laptop, fingers shaking but mind clear, and I typed. I never thought I'd post something like this, but it seems my family has chosen to tell only half the story, the part where I look like a villain. I'm the eldest daughter of Stephen and Marlene Bennett. Since I was 23, I've been financially supporting my parents, covering their mortgage, medical bills, home repairs, and even my brother's failed business. I never asked for praise. I did it because I believed in family. I believed that's what children do. But when I found out they left everything to my brother, the house, the savings, the future, and left me out entirely, I realized something. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a safety net, a wallet. I didn't abandon them. I stopped letting myself be used. If that makes me ungrateful in their eyes, so be it. But I know the truth, and now so do you. I hit post, closed the laptop, and waited, but not with fear, with clarity. The post spread faster than I expected. Within a day, I had dozens of messages, some from people I hadn't spoken to in years, some from strangers, some from friends I thought had forgotten me. Aunt Rochelle wrote, "Your post made me cry. I saw it all, but I never dared say anything." A high school friend messaged, "Finally, someone said what so many of us have lived through." I didn't respond to all of them. I couldn't. But I read every word, and with each line, something inside me began to settle, like a lake after a storm. Not healed, not yet, but no longer thrashing. Still, the other side didn't stay quiet for long. My father posted a photo from my graduation, the one where I'm hugging him, beaming in my cap and gown. His caption, "We lost the daughter who once made us proud, all because she got too busy to remember where she came from." Mom shared an older photo of the three of us. The caption was short but sharp. Some things only live on in memories. We forgive, but we don't forget. And then Brandon, never one to miss a dramatic moment, commented publicly. Family is about forgiveness, not keeping score. It's sad when someone values numbers over love. For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to respond. Not because I didn't have words, but because I no longer needed their approval, or their guilt, to validate my pain. The truth was out. Whoever wanted to understand would, and whoever didn't, I couldn't save them anymore. I didn't post again, just silence. But this time, it wasn't the old kind of silence, the kind that curled up in my throat, choking back everything I wanted to scream. This silence felt like standing on my own 2 feet, like breathing air that hadn't been filtered through someone else's expectations. A month passed. I moved out of my apartment, the one near Forest Park, the one that had become too heavy with memories. I found a smaller place near the Willamette River. It wasn't fancy, but the east-facing windows caught the morning light perfectly. And at night, when I lay in bed, the sound of water helped me sleep, really sleep. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for my phone to buzz. There were no emergencies, no bills that weren't mine, no late-night guilt texts that made my chest tighten. And on the evenings I used to spend triple-checking bank balances for my parents, I started writing again. Just small things. Stories about silence, about boundaries, about letting go. I no longer feared the word selfish. I'd lived too long under a twisted definition of love, one that demanded I disappear in order to prove it. Now, I chose something else. Love that didn't require exhaustion. Love that didn't cost my dignity. I kept a few old friendships, the ones who had always seen me, not just what I gave. We met on weekends, strolled along the park trails, talked about nothing important. And strangely, I felt lighter. I had given so much for so long, I forgot what it meant to feel light. One evening in late fall, while sipping coffee on my tiny balcony, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something, not hope, not dread, just a quiet curiosity, made me pick up. Ariana, my mother's voice, soft, hesitant, not demanding. She paused before speaking again. I'm not calling to ask for anything, I just want to know, are you okay? For a long second I said nothing. The wind rustled through the leaves like it was listening too. Part of me softened. Another part held firm. Then I replied, my voice calm. I'm living well, Mom, but I need to live my life, not as a backup plan, not as the one who always fixes everything. She was silent. Then, finally, I understand. That was all. I didn't say I forgive you, and she didn't ask for it. But in that quiet, fragile moment, I knew something had shifted. Not in her, maybe not even in us, but in me. I had finally stopped walking with someone else's weight on my shoulders, and started moving forward, with my own 2 feet. After the call with my mother, things didn't change overnight. There were no grand apologies, no heartfelt letters, no movie-worthy reconciliations, but there was a pause, a strange kind of stillness between us. No more texts asking for money, no surprise visits, no passive-aggressive posts on Facebook, just space. And for the first time in my life, I didn't rush to fill it. I didn't ask, are we okay? I didn't explain myself, justify my choices, or try to fix what they broke. I just let the silence be. It wasn't easy. Years of being the responsible one had wired me to respond, to rescue, to earn love by being useful. But now I was learning that love freely given doesn't require proof of suffering. I went on with my life. I still worked long hours. The market never sleeps, and neither does financial reporting. But now when I came home at night, the exhaustion wasn't the kind that bled into my bones. It was mine, earned and contained. I began walking more. On Sundays, I'd take the path along the Willamette River just after sunrise, when the water was still and the world felt like it was holding its breath. I'd sip my coffee and watch the birds skim the surface, so free, so unconcerned with anyone's expectations. And sometimes I'd wonder, is this what it feels like to belong to yourself? I still thought about my family. Of course I did. I thought about Dad's tired hands, always fixing things but never fixing what truly mattered. I thought about Mom's quiet disappointment. Not in what I did, but in the fact that I stopped needing her approval. And I thought about Brandon. Mostly, I thought about how he never once called, never once said I'm sorry, never once said thank you. But I also realized I wasn't waiting for those words anymore. They wouldn't change the past, and they wouldn't fix what had been broken long before the will was written. What I needed wasn't their acknowledgement, it was my own. One evening, while cleaning out old files on my laptop, I opened the Excel sheet I had once named What I've Given. There it was, line after line, every dollar, every sacrifice, every unspoken yes. I stared at it for a while, then I did something I hadn't expected. I deleted it, not out of anger, not to forget, but because I no longer needed a spreadsheet to validate what I already knew. I had done enough, more than enough. A few days later, I received a letter in the mail, not a bill, not a request, a simple envelope handwritten from my mother. Inside was a short note. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to. I miss you. I held it for a long time. No tears, just a quiet ache. I didn't respond right away. Maybe I wouldn't respond at all, at least not yet. But I didn't throw it away. That, I think, is what boundaries really are. Not walls, not punishments. Just the decision to stay on your side of the line until the people on the other side are willing to meet you in truth, not guilt. It's strange how healing doesn't come in the way you expect. I thought I would feel whole the day someone finally said thank you. I thought peace would arrive when my parents admitted they had hurt me. But it didn't come through apology. It came the day I stopped needing one. It's been 6 months since I closed that door. Since I stopped being the daughter who answered every call, sent every check, and held her breath waiting for affection dressed as approval. Now, I wake up in a different kind of quiet, not the silence of being unseen, but the stillness of knowing I no longer owe anyone my exhaustion. I still think about my family, but less as a burden and more as a part of my story. A chapter I've read enough times to know by heart, and no longer need to rewrite. Some evenings I walk down to the river with a notebook in hand. No spreadsheets, no obligations. Just blank pages, space, breath. I write stories now. Not about money, not about guilt, but about women who reclaim themselves, who leave the party no one invited them to, who stop setting themselves on fire to keep others warm. Sometimes I get messages from strangers who found my post, from eldest daughters, invisible sons, or quiet spouses who finally spoke up after years of swallowing pain. They write, "I didn't know I was allowed to say no. Thank you for reminding me I matter too. I thought I was the only one." And I reply, not as a savior, not as an expert, just as someone who walked through the fire and chose not to carry the axe. I don't know what the future holds for me and my family. Maybe one day there will be space to rebuild something honest, or maybe not. But either way, I'll be okay. Because I no longer define love as sacrifice without acknowledgement. I define it as presence with respect. And I've started to give that love, finally, to myself. My story isn't about money. It isn't even about a will. It's about worth. About what happens when you spend your life giving, and one day realize you were allowed to keep some of it for yourself. I used to think walking away made you heartless, but now I know. Sometimes it's the first act of radical self-love. So if you're reading this and you've been carrying too much for too long, this is your permission. You're allowed to put it down, you're allowed to stop explaining, you're allowed to be seen, not just used. And no matter what they say, you are not selfish for choosing peace. You are not wrong for saying this time, I choose me.